Hello, I'm Chris of Chrissie'sOverTheMountainCrochet.com. It's good to have you. I used Waverly fabric that I picked up at Walmart to make these cotton triangles. Triangles are 6 inches across the bottom and 5 inches down each side. Using the 2 triangle pieces that you have cut out, place them right sides together to prepare to sew. There you go, evenly in place. You might have a little bit of a difference there, but that's okay. Now it is time to sew them together. Here is a beginner way to do this. You start on the outside edge and you sew all the way up one side and off the other side. And then cut your threads and turn and start sewing again. This will give you a perfect corner at the tip of the triangle tips. When going down the side, go slow, as that is a bias cut. Now you need to make sure you leave an opening, so across the bottom, and then stop and back stitch. This rest will be left open. Then you start at about this point, back stitch, and sew across the edge, across the bottom, and off the edge. You will have perfect points. As you can see, this is a sewn piece that has the edge where we have sewn off the edge, sewn off the edge, and left an opening. And you are ready to turn your triangle. This can be a little bit tricky. I'll show you how. But first you need to trim the tips of each triangle corner, as turning with a lot of fabric in that tip can make the turning a little bit difficult. So not only do you need to clip off the tips, but you need to fiddle down the edges just a little bit, like I have done on these 2 corners, and I will show you how to on this 3rd corner. You take your scissors and you just cut a little bit into the edge. Yep, just like that. Do it on both sides of each triangle tip. There you go, and you have a little bit less fabric in that corner to make for an easy turning. Now it's time to turn. Stick your thumb all the way into the top and turn using your pointer finger. There you go. Now you have 2 more corners to turn. The easiest way is to make an opening for your thumb. Stick your thumb in, placing your pointer finger right behind your thumb, and as you turn, you push with your pointer finger. Do that on the opposite side as well. This takes a little bit of fiddling. Don't get discouraged. It's not that hard. Just a little bit of fiddling. Notice how the pointer finger pushes. There you go. Is it a clean, crisp point? Not right now. I like to take a knitting needle or something sharp. It doesn't have to be a knitting needle, but then I like to run that knitting needle along the edge. I used larger stitching so that you could see that I am running my knitting needle along the sewn edge. This helps give that sewn edge just a little press. And then I gently, very gently, poke the point out as easily as I can. I am making sure there is plenty of fabric behind the point on that knitting needle, and if I feel like I'm going to have to shove too hard, I'll stick my finger back in there and then use the tips of my fingernail to open it just a little bit. Sometimes it gets in a twist. Open that twist and then just gently push with that knitting needle. Now if you use a 2.5 stitch length, that's a 2.5 on my sewing machine. As you run the knitting needle along the seam, you will not see the stitches. and I used a contrasting thread so that you could see. Now I am on to this last point. I'm going to work it just a little bit. I need to use my pinky finger to try to get that in there, and then use my fingernails a little bit to open that and get that twist out of there. And here we go with a knitting needle, very gently opening that back up. There you go. And it's coming, just real gentle pushes, very gentle. And I'm happy with that, very happy with that. It's ready to iron. It's ready to take to the sewing machine and iron. It will be easier to iron since I ran my knitting needle along those seams. All I have to do is just give it a little push and a shove when I'm at the ironing board, and that will iron up very crisp. As you can see, I folded the edges in on the opening and ironed those down. I ironed the edges, and then I top stitched with a 3 top stitch all the way around the triangle. That does not have to be perfect. And then I placed it in position on my placemat, and now I'm going to use a needle and thread and start sewing the corners in place. I'll be sewing all 3 corners in place. I like to start with that corner, then the 2 outside corners, the 2 corners at the edge. I like to sew those first. So I pick up my placemat and I just fold back the crocheted part just a little bit, and I insert the needle after, of course, the thread has been knotted into the yarn first, and then I just grab a tiny bit of that tip, and I just do this process several times. Before I knot the thread, I do take a minute to check and make sure I have it in place. And there you can see I'm going to make sure I have everything in place the way I want it. Yep, I've sewn both corners in place, and I have an opening on that edge. I'm going to need to sew that one edge in place right there, the center. I'll sew that center in place. I have one more point that needs to be sewn. Now that I'm happy it's straight, I'm going to finish this off and put a knot in my work so that it doesn't come apart. Now that I have the 2 corners in place, I want to make sure I get that one corner where I want it to be. So I turn my placemat and I just grab it and bunch it up, making sure that the crocheted part is right where I wanted it to be, and then I proceed to sew that into place. This outside edge needs to be tacked in place. All of this sewing is just a tacking process. It's not a deep hanking down sewing situation. You just want to tack this into place so that it's not flopping open. It just takes just a minute. Hey, now we're finished and we have it all tacked into place. Place to insert silverware. You can just put one triangle on your placemat and add a little bit of silverware or a napkin, whatever you choose to do, or you can add a second piece. I personally like the second piece, but one piece is just enough. You could add a paper napkin or a wrapped napkin, but I do like the second piece. You can use a contrasting fabric as I did, or you can use the same fabric. I got this fabric at Walmart. It is a 100% cotton duck by Waverly. The fabric was pre-washed, so easy to work with. Now it's time to pin this in place. Since this first piece is already there, I really feel the need to pin this in place, and I'll do that for you right now. Now grab your needle and thread, and let's start sewing the corners of the triangle in place, just as we did the first triangle. After sewing the first corner in place, I want to mark and pin this corner, this edge, into place on top of the first triangle, not through the whole placemat. I want that whole area to be open to insert silverware. So as you can see, I stuck my finger in behind there, and I'm going to be sewing those two edges together, just tacking them in place. It doesn't take a lot of sewing to do, but it does need to be tacked in place at the top right there and right at the bottom. Those two areas need to be tacked in place. They just need to be tacked on top of one another, not through the placemat. Remember, just those two pieces. It's an easy process to do. So once all of your tacking is finished, you will have a beautiful, beautiful finished product. I hope you'll like and subscribe to my channel. I hope you'll enjoy using this technique on your placemat so that you'll have a place to add your silverware, just to make a beautiful table setting, a place to put a wonderful napkin. It was good to have you on my side of the mountain. I hope you'll come again soon. Don't forget to use the hashtag Summer Celebration at Chrissy's to find all of the free crochet patterns that are released during the summer celebration. Bye.